Hi, this is Shane Starr with Reflections on Religion on a beautiful morning in Irvine, California. Yesterday's prelude to today's video asked the question, what do we mean when we say something or someone is dead to us? And today we're going to explore that in greater depth with the famous or infamous philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and his statement, or rather proclamation, that God is dead. So we're going to start with his direct quote. This is where this statement first appears. It's in his work, The Gay Science. And this is what he says. From a madman, figuratively and literally, I think. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How should we console ourselves, the most murderous of all murderers, the holiest and mightiest that the world has hitherto possessed, has bled to death under our knife? Who will wipe away the blood from us? With what water could we cleanse ourselves? What lustrums, what sacred games shall we have to devise? Is not the magnitude of this deed too great for us? Shall we not ourselves have to become gods merely to seem worthy of this deed? There never was a greater event, and on account of it, all who are born after us belong to a higher history than any history hitherto. Okay, so to put this statement in context, Nietzsche is talking about a madman running into the marketplace with a lantern, shouting that he is looking for God, only to realize that the townspeople have murdered him through lack of faith. Does this mean that Nietzsche is making a scientific or philosophical or even theological claim about the technical existence of God? No. And that's why I did the preview about what do we mean when we say something or someone is dead to us. Nietzsche, in the same way the Bible isn't a scientific work, it talks about the why, not the what. Nietzsche employs the same literary device in his work. He doesn't make a scientific or logical argument about God's existence. He merely poetically writes what he sees all around him, and that he sees is that God no longer occupies a significant place or part in people's lives. And with the removal of God, who has, up until Nietzsche's time, been more or less the bedrock of civilization, now humanity needs to confront what Nietzsche says, a terrifying nothingness. No more theological grounding, no more morality. And according to Nietzsche, this is scary, and humanity needs to create something to fill this vacuum. And Nietzsche sought to fill this gap with new values that are, in his words, beyond good and evil. Really the will to power, culminating in what he called the Superman, a person who stands above good and evil, willing to do what needs to be done for the greater humanity, even if it means dominating or even killing those less strong. And if it sounds like the foreshadowing of what happened in his native Germany half a century later after his time, then you're spot on, because that's, the Nazis really took over this philosophy and kind of appropriated it for themselves. But that's not really the point of our video today. What I want to get to is, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for you and for me? Nietzsche says God is dead. Well, is it true? We're not talking about technically speaking or scientifically speaking. If you've watched any of my videos up till now, you've realized that real true faith isn't about technical belief. It's not about the correct beliefs. It's not about even doing the right thing. It's about a loving relationship. And seen in that context as a loving relationship, if we were to say God is dead to us, that wouldn't mean something about God's existence or a certain conception of God. No, it would mean less of a proof against God and more like the breakup of a relationship. Really, when Nietzsche says God is dead to us, he's talking about a culture, but for us, he's talking about you and me. And it reminds me of my own adult life, technically believing in God, technically having what I thought were the right beliefs, but really realizing that my life wasn't any different than not only people who are agnostic, but even atheists. There is no proof that my life with my so-called faith was any different than anyone else's. In fact, in a lot of ways, I was worse. And again, for all of us who are self-professing religious people or Christians, we have to examine ourselves and ask if God is alive for us or if God is dead to us. I'm happy to say that through a lot of self-reflection, a new life with healthy habits, and a new life within the church, I can see a change in my personal, not just my beliefs, but my habits, my routines, what takes up most of my time. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I have to pray for forgiveness every morning and every night, but the new me is a lot different from the old me. And I hope for those of you who share the faith, I hope it's the same for you. So again, I would say the question for today's video is what Nietzsche said, God is dead. It may have been true for him, but is it true for you? That's it this week. I will catch you next Thursday. Until then, God bless.